Hello and welcome to this special broadcast as we kickstart the annual meetings of the African Development Bank. I'm Kenneth Ibomo and thanks for tuning in. Over the years, the African Development Bank's annual meetings has been a focal point for setting a development agenda for the continent. This year, the 56th annual meetings of the Board of Governors and the 47th annual meetings of the African Development Fund, which is the concessional arm of the bank group, will be virtual. And we are set for the opening ceremony to begin. Governors of the bank's 54th regional and 27 non-regional member countries will attend the opening ceremony, which will start shortly. And we are expecting a series of speeches to be delivered by key members of the bank and other stakeholders. One to look out for is the address by the Finance Minister of Ghana, Ken Ofori-Atta, who is the current chair of the Board of Governors. And just after the opening ceremony, there will be a high-level knowledge event titled From Debt Resolution to Growth, and it's packed with heavyweights, I tell you. Some of the speakers are Christina Georgieva, that's the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund. We also have Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Director of the World Trade Organization, Ethiopia's Minister of Finance, that is Mr. Ahmed Shide, and Nigeria's Finance Minister Zainab Ahmed. Quite a heavy lineup if you ask me, but stick around all through today for more content from the annual meetings as we kickstart the opening ceremony.
My name is Vincent Mehele, Secretary General of the African Development Bank Group. I am pleased to welcome you to the 2021 annual meetings of the Boards of Governors of the African Development Bank and the African Development Fund. On this auspicious occasion, I'd like to express our profound gratitude to all of you for kindly and favorably responding to our invitation. Allow me to express our deepest appreciation to the Honorable Kenneth Ofori-Atta, Minister of Finance and the Governor of Ghana for the African Development Bank and Chairperson of the Boards of Governors. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this year's meetings are organized to help turn the COVID-19 crisis into opportunities under the theme, Building Resilient Economies in Post-COVID-19 Africa. The meetings will provide a framework for governors to examine the impact of the pandemic on their economies, to share their experiences in addressing it, and explore ideas on how to withstand such future exogenous shocks and challenges. It is therefore our hope and belief that the discussions and deliberations will be those that echo the saying that no one should be left behind in our endeavor to build back better and bolder beyond COVID-19. I wish you all productive participation in the current session of the 2021 annual meetings. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to present the program of our opening ceremony. We will begin with a welcome statement by Honorable Kenneth Ofori-Atta, Minister of Finance and Chairperson of the Boards of Governors of the Bank Group. And thereafter, we will have an opening video for the 2021 annual meetings. After the video, we'll have a keynote speech by the President of the Bank Group. And thereafter, a statement by the Chairperson of the African Union Commission. Following that, we'll have a video produced by Ghana on the Accra Urban Transport Project. And finally, we will have the opening address of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my honor to call upon Honorable Kenneth Ofori-Atta, Minister of Finance of Ghana and the Chairperson of the Boards of Governors of the Bank Group for his welcome statement. Chairperson.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Secretary General. His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, distinguished honorable governors of the bank, honorable alternate governors of the bank, Dr. Adesina, the President of the bank, the Vice Presidents of the bank, Executive Directors, Secretary Generals, Senior Management and Staff of the bank, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome indeed and good morning. Welcome to this 56th annual general meeting of the Board of Governors of the African Development Bank and the 47th annual meeting of the African Development Fund. I am honored and indeed grateful and blessed for the opportunity to address this most distinguished gathering. Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, please accept a special thank you for your gracious presence by video and the unflinching support to the African Development Bank. I was looking forward to hosting the entire Africa Development Bank delegation in Accra. However, our camaraderie will have to be in a virtual format for the second year running. For better or worse, COVID-19 has changed our habits and fundamentally disrupted our way of doing things. Undoubtedly, the environment in which our bank operates has changed dramatically in the past year. Regardless of our present location, the key task is to rebuild a resilient, confident, peaceful, prosperous continent underpinned by strong financial institutions with relevant data, knowledge, products, convening power, and an ADB with a capital base to promote economic and social solidarity. Our bank, distinct in its role, has to be at the center of Africa's build back through targeted support to tackle Africa's developmental challenges and lay the foundation to respond to future challenges. The renewed strategic and indeed moral focus at a precarious time in the world's history, our history. Unfortunately, for the first time in 25 years, Africa is experiencing a recession brought on by this unexpected pandemic. According to various estimates, Africa's GDP contracted by an estimated 1.93% in comparison to the fiscal deficit rose to 8.7% and average debt levels jumped to approximately 66% by end of year last year. What is clear is that now is the time to build a more inclusive, comprehensive, comparable, transparent, and better understood global financial architecture. With this, we'll continue without this, we'll continue with this lasting economic and debt crisis across many developing countries. It is wrong to conflate recent news about the vaccine with evidence of a fairer, adequate global response. Less than 1% of sub-Saharan Africa has been fully vaccinated, with a population of 1.3 billion. Africa as a whole has received just 41 million of the 2.6 billion other doses administered globally. Unfortunately, the result is staggering and maybe shameful to a degree. With 85% of vaccines administered in high and upper middle income countries, with an average of 68 doses per 100 people in high income countries, compared with nearly 2 doses for 100 people in Africa. Africa is being left behind, and we are staring down the possibility of a lost decade, where the economic trajectory of Africa pulls further away from the rest of the world. By 2050, colleagues, the continent will be home to a quarter of the global population and more than half of the world's young people, 850 million. If these young people do not have opportunities, there will be an increased likelihood of resource conflicts, migration, and terrorism. This is sobering. Now is our opportunity to avoid this fate. Just as the Bretton Woods institutions rebuilt and reshaped the post-war global economy after World War II, the global financial system, as we reimagine it today, has the potential to shape economies and lives across the world for decades to come, for a more inclusive and prosperous world. At a summit of African leaders in Paris last month, His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo also advocated and supported establishing an African stability mechanism and an African liquidity and sustainability facility, akin to the European stability mechanism. The African stability mechanism will be a permanent firewall for Africa to safeguard and provide instant emergency access to financial assistance for countries in financial difficulties. The liquidity and sustainability facility could also underwrite a more effective market in African debt that reduces the high liquidity premium developing countries pay for sustainability-linked investments. Taken together, these innovations can pave the way for a new global financial system based on equity, sustainability, and collective prosperity, what President Emmanuel Macron dubbed possibly a New Deal for Africa. Critically, we must also enhance the ability of regional financial institutions to lead our economic recovery. The historic 115 billion capital injection into ADB from shareholders is timely, but we must go further, as is evident now. A well-capitalized AFDB offers the continent a better path towards development than global institutions like the World Bank and IMF. The Africa Development Bank will be critical for building resilient economies in a post-COVID-19 Africa. As we advance building back greener and better, will require Africa Development Bank to show leadership to address three critical categories of risk, namely the risk of greater pandemic resurgence, which will affect African countries disproportionately, the risk of reduced capital inflows because of the perceived economic effects of the pandemic resurgence, the risk of lasting economic damage from the pandemic exacerbating poverty and inequality within African countries. The capital we need, there's a real urgency for us to pull in capital and support critical investment while giving renewed impetus for job creation and economic diversification. I believe initiatives such as the Africa Development High Five and the launch of programs that promote our continent's young entrepreneurs will position us to respond to the challenges of supporting inclusive growth and the transition to green growth. Excellencies, we must irreversibly entrench the position of African Development Bank to lead the charge in Africa's build back and confront historical injustices, including risk premiums, illicit financial flows, and a tectonic shift of the global financial architecture. Why are we here? But to create the most credible financial institution that would ensure that we work in a counter-cyclical way. When historians write about the 21st century, they will judge policymakers, shareholders, stakeholders, and relevant partners by both our actions during the pandemic and our choices that follow. If Africa emerges from COVID-19 with old inequalities unaddressed and new opportunities unrealized, our shared sacrifice would have been in vain. I must indicate that we must take steps to consolidate and irreversibly entrench the position of Africa's premier bank to lead the charge in confronting these historical injustices. In doing this, the genuine support of the members of the Governors Bureau, namely the Governor of Austria, serving as first Vice President, and the Governor of Niger, serving as second Vice President throughout the period, must be commended and appreciated. I'd also like to thank non-regionals for the support in maintaining our AAA rating. I also want to express my gratitude to all governors for contributing to the results achieved in recent months. I'm equally thankful for your continued and principle-based flexibility on matters relating to the effective operations of the bank. The principal objective, of course, of our bank is to be counter-cyclical with 100% exposure to this continent of high risk. But we cannot leave this responsibility and be myopic with regards to our traditional role. We must engage, we must understand the SDRs or reallocation to us, We must relook at the ADF in a way as to get more resources for the continent. The Africa Stability Mechanism must be examined. These are all important departures from the past. So let us use these annual meetings to commit to rebuilding a healthier, more just, and more sustainable continent. Let us also pledge to put sufficient political will and resources behind this commitment. The time for action is now, when our experience of the pandemic and the lessons we can draw from it are fresh. We'll say something from one of our major philosophers in Ghana, Reverend Amu. Asem yidika hinanobeka, ejuma yidiye hinanobeye. This has to be said. Who will say it? The work has to be done. Who will do it? Who is up to the task, as Paul said in Corinthians? So a new, better normal is upon us as a group. We must act boldly to make it reality. Thank you for your attention, and God bless us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. From the welcoming words of the Chairperson, I'd like to introduce the 2021 annual meetings video from the command base in Abidjan.
Africa is proving its resilience. The COVID-19 pandemic hit the continent hard. It has taken countless lives and left some 24 million people without jobs. The pandemic caused the worst economic downturn for Africa in half a century. But we expect things to take a turn for the better in 2021. African economies will recover and grow by at least 3.4%. Countries will emerge from the pandemic and build even more resilient economies.
Africa will rebound from this COVID-19. We must now transform Africa better, faster, and be resilient.
The African Development Bank responded swiftly to mitigate the pandemic's impact on African countries. In addition to its own direct financial support, it has also mobilized global resources to help Africa build even more resilient economies. The bank is also currently preparing a strategy for quality health infrastructure in Africa. Here are just a few examples of recent successes. In Kenya, the Last Mile Connectivity Project delivers electricity power to hard-to-reach rural areas. At least 80% of the Kenyan population is now connected to grid power, and 100% should be connected by 2026.
Now I'm using electricity. I can pump, I can grow whatever I want because I'm doing well now. I'm farming, using electricity. The little I shall save. I want to see how I can make a good house.
Africa is industrializing. In Morocco, for example, factories are modernizing their operations and producing Moroccan-built motor vehicles. This has been made possible through support from the African Development Bank, whose goal of rapidly industrializing the continent remains one of its top priorities.
Je suis le responsable flux aval PSA Maroc. Sur un train, on peut charger 280 véhicules. On charge 2 trains par jour qui relient en fait Kinitra et le port de Tongemet pour les exporter ensuite en Europe et à travers le monde.
In Sudan and Ethiopia, the African Development Bank's Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation Program provides new drought and heat-resistant seeds to help double crop yields.
In the past, we used to get low yields using uncertified seeds, but we've been trained through farmer field schools on how to produce our own seeds and become seed producers instead of seed buyers.
In Zimbabwe, the African Development Bank administered ZIMFA rehabilitates water supply and sanitation plants that deliver significant health benefits.
Tailimita mvura chigeza mona aigeza 2 liters iko zvinogeza madiro kuti mvura iyi takangozongoereka darimwe zvatangoona mvura dzakubuda pamapomo.
In January 2021, the African Continental Free Trade Area began trading. With its potential $3.3 trillion market, it promises a new era of intra-African integration. To help African economies rebound, the African Development Bank is helping them manage their debt and move from debt resolution to growth. Africa will require up to $285 billion in additional financing between 2021 and 2025, with half of this for low-income economies.
It's absolutely essential that African countries receive the financial support they need at the present moment to protect their citizens and to be able to relaunch their economies.
Resilient growth also means adapting to the reality of climate change. 7 out of the 10 most climate vulnerable countries are in Africa, and yet the continent receives only 3% of global climate finance. The African Development Bank is mobilizing $25 billion for climate finance between 2020 and 2025. At the same time, the international community needs to honor its pledge to provide $100 billion a year for climate finance to developing countries.
Our solution for making the world a better place is simple. Work together. We must unite. We must ensure health security and prosperity for all. When we leave no one behind, now that's a better world.
To overcome today's challenges, the African Development Bank is working closely with the governments and people of Africa to ensure a prosperous future.
Your Excellency, President Nana Akufo-Addo, President of Ghana, Your Excellency Musa Faki, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Honorable Governors of the African Development Bank Group, Boards of Directors of the African Development Bank Group, Senior Management and staff of the African Development Bank Group, distinguished members of the media, friends of Africa, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2021 annual meetings of the African Development Bank Group. My very special welcome to His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo for hosting us virtually in Ghana for this year's annual meetings. We are grateful to Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, also the chairperson of the Board of Governors of the African Development Bank Group, for his leadership and support for the bank. I very warmly welcome my dear brother, His Excellency Musa Faki, the chairperson of the African Union Commission. Your presence here with us today is a further testament to the strong partnership between the African Development Bank Group and the African Union Commission, as we work tirelessly to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. I especially want to welcome you very warmly, our dear governors, and thank you for your unwavering loyalty, commitment, and support to the bank. That support makes it possible for us to strongly back Africa through the thick and the thin. Thank you very much. Our annual meetings are always exciting times when we meet each other, give each other our high-five greetings, and exchange and debate ideas on how to accelerate Africa's development, how to strengthen the bank, and to position it more strategically and effectively to take on big challenges on behalf of Africa. I miss, of course, those physical meetings, the energy of our collective engagements. The pandemic has changed so many things. Life is no longer the same. Our mode of working and our interactions have all changed. Yet, I am confident that while the mode of our meetings is virtual, we will ensure that we pack the virtual space with the same buzz, the same drive, the same energy. We need that energy as we reflect on the challenges facing Africa with the pandemic and how to support the continent to recover from its widespread effects in the short, medium, and long term. Before the pandemic, Africa was home to 6 of the fastest growing economies in the world. This changed as economies went into lockdowns, travel was restricted, tourism dried up, while commodity prices plummeted because of weakened global demand for exports of oil, gas, and commodities. The effects of the pandemic on the continent's economy have been massive. Africa's cumulative GDP losses are estimated between $145 billion and $190 billion. Africa, we need a lot of resources to support its recovery. Low-income sub-Saharan African countries alone will need $245 billion by 2030, while all of sub-Saharan Africa will need $425 billion by 2030. And the challenge of development just got even harder, as 30 million people fell into extreme poverty, and an estimated 39 million people could fall into poverty by the end of 2021. Africa needs strong actions to support its recovery. The African Development Bank took strong actions. We responded quickly and strongly to support African economies. The bank launched a $3 billion social impact bond on global capital markets, which was at the time the largest ever US dollar-denominated social bond in world history. We announced a $10 billion crisis response facility. We provided $28 million to the African Center for Disease Control and Prevention. We saved lives and livelihoods. We secured the future. We turned peril into possibility. It is still challenging, no doubt, but Africa is starting to move forward again. Vaccines are becoming available gradually. Lockdowns are being lifted. Restrictions are being eased. Businesses are reopening. A sense of normalcy is starting to return. Economies across the continent are on the road to recovery, with an average projected growth in GDP of 3.4% in 2021. Now, the recovery is conditional on access to vaccines and the resolution of Africa's debt. Africa produces less than 1% of its vaccines. Africa should not be begging for vaccines. Africa should be producing vaccines. The African Development Bank will support Africa to produce vaccines as part of the vaccines plan of the African Union. The bank will also plan to commit $3 billion to developing the pharmaceutical industry in Africa. We will leverage our resources. We will not walk alone. We will walk in partnership with others. Together, I am confident we will get vaccines to all in Africa. The bank is taking actions to tackle Africa's debt. We have launched a debt action plan and a new strategy for economic governance in Africa. Both will support countries to tackle debt and to embark on bolder economic governance reforms to forestall a debt crisis. We commend the positive efforts being made by the International Monetary Fund and the G20 to address the debt situation, including initiatives such as the Debt Service Suspension Initiative and the G20 Common Framework. We now have a real opportunity to tackle Africa's debt challenges more decisively with the recent decision by the IMF to issue $650 billion special drawing rights called the SDRs. As agreed by African heads of state and global leaders at a summit on financing of African economies called by President Emmanuel Macron of France, $100 billion of these SDRs should be provided to support Africa. I am delighted that the G7 heads of state and government agreed to this call at their recent summit. To use the special drawing rights, we need new lenses. We need new approaches, for these are extraordinary times. These SDRs should also be used to direct financing to Africa through the African Development Bank, a prescribed holder of SDRs, to unlend to African public development banks to support green, climate resilient, and inclusive recovery and the stabilization of the economies. Let me be very clear. Africa is not looking for a free pass. Debt resolution must be reinforced by stronger economic governance, public financial management, better and transparent management of Africa's natural resources, and mobilization of domestic resources. But we must not let the pandemic mask the gains that we have made along the way. We must sustain those gains and do even more to help Africa to get back on a faster recovery pathway. Over the past 5 years before the pandemic, the bank's high fives have helped to improve the lives of 335 million Africans. The continent witnessed an increase in access to electricity for about 20 million people as the bank supported the generation of 3,000 megawatts of power. Access to electricity on the continent has increased from 49% to 56% since the bank launched its New Deal on energy for Africa. The electricity makes it possible for hospitals and clinics to operate during the pandemic and to safely store vaccines. The bank has launched the Desert to Power Initiative, a $20 billion program to develop 10,000 megawatts of solar power in the Sahel and provide electricity for 250 million people. This will be the largest solar zone in the world. We are expanding options for farmers that were never before thought possible. In Sudan and Ethiopia, the bank has supported farmers to have access to heat-tolerant wheat varieties that now, for the first time, makes it possible for Sudan to boost self-sufficiency. As Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok of Sudan said, we now grow wheat in drylands where we never thought we could grow it. We have cultivated these heat-tolerant varieties on 800,000 acres and expects Sudan to be self-sufficient in wheat in 3 years. What an incredible achievement. The bank, together with the International Fund for Agricultural Development, co-convened a global leaders dialogue on feeding Africa and mobilized $17 billion to support the scaling up of food security. The leaders called for the establishment of a facility for African food security and nutrition to scale up technologies to millions of farmers and to achieve zero hunger by 2030. The bank is taking decisive actions on the climate and green recovery. The bank, together with the Global Center on Adaptation, launched the African Adaptation Acceleration Program to help mobilize $25 billion for climate adaptation in Africa. The bank is supporting African countries to implement their nationally determined contributions to promote green growth and energy transitions as we look forward to COP26 in Glasgow. The bank is taking actions to expand economic opportunities for women. Through our affirmative finance action for women in Africa, AFAWA, we approved a portfolio guarantee of $250 million with the Africa Guarantee Fund in January 2021. This guarantee will help to unlock up to $2 billion in financing women-empowered businesses. The effects are being felt in the countries. The bank is taking actions to unleash the potentials of the youth in Africa. The bank's Coding for Employment program has already equipped over 23,000 youth in 45 countries with digital skills, enabling them to set up their own businesses. The bank is exploring with countries the establishment of youth entrepreneurship investment banks. They will finance and grow the businesses of the youth, boost jobs, and unleash youth-based wealth in Africa. The African Development Bank is taking decisive actions to reboot investments into Africa. Making the African Continental Free Trade Area work is now more crucial than ever before. The African Development Bank will continue to invest in regional infrastructure, promoting regional integration, including the integration of financial and capital markets. We remain highly committed to the success of the African Continental Free Trade Area. That's why the bank provided $4.8 million to support the establishment of the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat based right there in Ghana. As we look to the Africa Investment Forum 2021 edition, the African Development Bank and its partners have already prepared a pipeline of 230 projects valued at $208 billion to boost opportunities for the African Continental Free Trade Area. I am very optimistic about Africa. Africa will recover. Africa will build back better. Africa will thrive. Others share my optimism. A survey of private equity firms by the African Private Equity and Venture Capital Association in 2020 shows that 60% of limited partner investors expect to increase their allocations to Africa in the next 3 years. There is also great optimism about the African Development Bank Group. We are pressed on every side, but we are not deterred. We operate in one of the riskiest environments, but we remain focused and determined to support Africa to develop against all odds. We are reforming. We are strengthening our institution. We are deepening our development impact and effectiveness. Honorable governors, I have some good news. The African Development Bank was named as the best multilateral financial institution in the world for 2021 by Global Finance, the prestigious US magazine. The African Development Fund, the bank group's concessional lending institution, was ranked by the Center for Global Development as the second best in the world among 49 multilateral and bilateral institutions providing concessional financing globally for the quality of its development assistance. These recognitions point to the quality of the work of the bank, quality and strength of our governance, our responsiveness to the needs of our regional member countries, and the effectiveness of our delivery and impacts. They also reflect the high levels of dedication and commitment of the staff and the boards of directors of the bank as we continue to work relentlessly to improve our operations, strengthen the institution, to accelerate Africa's development, while assuring the financial sustainability of the bank. We are here for a purpose: to fast-track Africa's development. As shareholders and governors of the bank, your support is what keeps us going. Your confidence inspires us. Your strong financial support keeps us afloat to swim even in stormy tides. Your wise counsel, words of advice, helps us to chart even better paths for ourselves and for the continent we all serve selflessly. Africa deserves our stronger actions and support for a much better future. Honorable governors, Africa is standing on the cusp of a whole new exciting era. No matter how steep the mountain, together we will reach the top. From there, we will clearly see the Africa we want, a fair and equitable continent where progress is shared by all. Our resolve is stronger than the challenge thrown at us by the pandemic. We are resilient. Africa's brighter future beckons, and we are ready. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your speech that sets the tone for these annual meetings. It is now my honor to call upon His Excellency, Mr. Musa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, to deliver his statement. Mr. Chairperson.
Merci. Excellence, Monsieur Nana Addo.
Thank you.
Akufo-Addo, président
Your Excellency, Mr. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, Honorable Kenneth Ofori-Atta, Minister of Finance of Ghana, Chairperson of the Boards of Governors of the African Development Bank Group, Honorable Governors, the President of the African Development Bank Group, my dear brother Desina, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. 2 years ago, I was opportune to address the August meeting and actually express satisfaction with the excellent achievements of the African Development Bank Group under the stewardship of President Adesina. And today, I am delighted to underscore the persistent efforts which the bank is actually making for the development of the continent of Africa. At the time, I had made a strong appeal for an increase of the resources of the bank so that it can address the ever-increasing and even more complex challenges which the continent has to grapple with. And I am pleased to note today that you all heeded that call by way of a historical capital increase for the bank, as well as a significant replenishment of the resources of the African Development Fund, which have all enabled the African Development Bank to make available $10 billion to assist African countries in facing the dual shock of the COVID-19 pandemic with its economic challenges. We should also mention the $3 billion social bond which the bank actually issued, which is a first and a success. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the African Development Bank prime role in the development of the continent cannot be gainsaid with the massive investments which are in the area of infrastructure, especially by way of the program for infrastructure development in Africa, to which are added the institutional support such as the $4.8 million grant for the establishment of the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area, as well as the $28 million given to the African Centers for Disease Control so as to beef up its capacity to coordinate and lead continental efforts in fighting COVID-19. The same can be said in the area of climate change, and in this respect, the bank recently organized the high-level dialogue on climate adaptation, as well as the Africa Accelerated Adaptation Program in conjunction with the Global Center for Climate Adaptation. This program, which seeks to mobilize $25 billion will make it possible to operationalize the African Initiative for Climate Adaptation, which is an African Union-led initiative. Let me also mention the brilliant achievements of the African Development Bank in agriculture with the TART program, which is the Technologies for Agricultural Transformation, and it enables millions of farmers to benefit from high-yield seeds as well as agricultural technologies. I would like to urge our governors to strongly support their respective capitals the proposal of the bank for a significant proportion of the special drawing rights expected from the IMF so as to reduce the debt burden, which is undermining the efforts of development for the continent of Africa. And in this respect, drawing all the lessons from the COVID-19 crisis, I would like to point out the relevance and the need for African continent to have the financial stability mechanism as proposed by the African Development Bank, which is akin to what other institutions have, or other continents have. And let me also state that it is really high time for the finance ministers of the continent, that you are, as well as your main partners who are also members of the bank, could actually think about the urgent need to set up this
continental mechanism. As a matter of fact, President Nana Akufo-Addo of Ghana is the champion in this regard.
Une réflexion sur une stratégie d'intervention dans le domaine des infrastructures sanitaires de qualité
on the strategy for intervention in quality health infrastructure and the capacity building of African countries in terms of the production and value addition in pharmaceuticals. And by so doing, addressing one of the major concerns which we have today more than ever before. Africa needs to beef up its health infrastructure as well as infrastructure in the manufacture of vaccines and products, especially by setting up the Africa Drugs Agency. And, this is an opportunity for me to express the wish for the African Development Bank to cooperate quickly with the African Union and all the partners so as to roll out this strategy, which will help in reducing our dependence on other countries in the area of drugs and vaccines.
Le programme AFAWA pour l'entrepreneuriat des femmes, le lancement prochain des banques d'investissement pour l'entrepreneuriat des jeunes.
As well as the future launch of the investment banks for youth entrepreneurship. The implementation of all those projects will make it possible to achieve Agenda 2063, as well as our common aspiration, which is the Africa we want. And it is with a lot of pride that we welcome the excellent news of the bank having been designated as the best multilateral institution globally for the year 2020. And as an institution which has been especially mandated by the African Union Commission to mobilize resources towards the implementation of Agenda 2063, I would like to urge the bank to develop innovative financing mechanisms. And in this respect, I note with pleasure the encouraging results subsequent to the Africa Investment Forum and would entreat the bank to help in terms of domestic resource mobilization as well as the mobilization of resources from the Africa diaspora, as well as the Development Bank. And I thank you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking His Excellency, the Chairperson of the AUC, for his statement. It is now time to showcase the video on the Accra urban transport projects produced by Ghana. Video, please, from our vision.
Over 40% of its population living in urban areas, Ghana is one of the most urbanized countries in Africa. Greater Accra is expanding at more than 9% annually, and rapid growth has led to traffic congestion, overcrowding, substandard housing, and a degraded local environment. To help unclog traffic congestion and provide infrastructure for the local community, the African Development Bank funded the Accra Urban Transport Project to the tune of $82.8 million through its concessional window, the Africa Development Fund. The project provides a 5.3-kilometer dual carriageway linking Ewoshi-Pokwasi Road to the Pokwasi interchange. This will reduce travel time between Accra and Kumasi and boost the local economy.
The goal of this project is to provide an integrated, viable, and sustainable, infrastructure to ensure that we have poverty reduction within the area, and also, as you know, there's an alternative road that will take you from Togo all the way through Tema and then to La Côte d'Ivoire. So it becomes an ECOWAS corridor.
By far, I said, within a short time, and I say, when you stop in the crack, I do baby. Tim Cecilia, they were 100% road, the password.
inviting more than 5,000 people around the project area of influence. The project promotes sustainable development growth as a whole, enhancing urban development, reducing poverty, and promoting efficient movement of people and goods to and from the city to improve the livelihoods of new generations and businesses to come.
Thank you very much for that video. I now have the honor and privilege to invite His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, for his speech, which comes to us via video. Please play the video.
It is good to be with you, virtually. And I must begin by paying tribute to Dr. Kiwumi Adesina, President of the African Development Bank Group, for his remarkable leadership and vision during a particularly turbulent time in the history of our continent. I also thank the Board of Governors and the Board of Directors of the bank and the fund for their oversight, pragmatism, and display of enlightened awareness in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic exposed deep fragilities in the continent that require urgent attention, particularly in relation to green growth, climate-conscious industrialization, and the creation of resilient economies. It is reassuring that our bank led a coordinated response to address these fragilities through $4.1 billion United States COVID-19 facility to limit the social and economic impact of COVID-19. A $2 million United States donation in emergency assistance to the World Health Organization. A special $20 million United States package to five Sahel countries to strengthen their national capacity. And critically, addressing the urgent need for liquidity and debt sustainability on the continent by collaborating and partnering with the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund on the debt service suspension initiative, the G20 common framework, the strategic use of the special drawing rights, and the establishment of an African financial stability mechanism to ensure greater financial market stability. I hope to see additional collaborations, partnerships, and the continued allocation of substantial resources towards initiatives that accelerate our chances of building back boldly, better and greener. I ask that we remain focused on promoting inclusive growth, especially in digitalization, health, agriculture, industrial processing, and eliminating gender disparities. Today's annual meeting have an appropriate focus, building resilient economies in post-COVID-19 Africa, which is an unavoidable imperative if our continent is to recover from the effects of the pandemic. In an unprecedented global event of this magnitude, we must engineer a response that will help accelerate our structural transformation. Our will in seeing it through must be total. We need to reawaken bonds of solidarity between the bank group, African Union organs and institutions, and regional economic communities, and demonstrate a united commitment towards rebuilding our communities. As we meet to debate and strategize, we cannot ignore the significant challenges facing us. The pandemic has taken over 130,000 lives to date on the continent and pushed our economies into contraction by an estimated 2% to 5.4% of GDP, according to the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA. Old pathways to recover are no longer an option, and we are being forced to prepare for a new uncertain future ahead proactively. Across many African countries, fiscal policies and debt levels came under severe pressure due to limited policy space and domestic and external macroeconomic vulnerabilities. Increased health expenditures and the need to provide fiscal stimulus, combined with revenue loss, exerted budgetary pressures on government financing, with the total fiscal deficit of Africa rising from 4.7% of GDP in 2019 to 8.7% in 2020, according to ECA estimates. The increase in the fiscal deficit is most severe in all exporting and mineral-rich countries in particular. Africa's overall debt level is also expected to have risen from 57% of GDP in 2019 to almost 70% in 2020. Consequently, the African economic downturn is expected to impact development and social outcomes significantly. Data gathered by the World Bank and ILO indicate that across sub-Saharan Africa, job losses were widespread in 2020, especially in urban areas and for female workers. The ILO estimates 113 million full-time jobs were lost on the continent. At the same time, the World Bank adds that the fallout from job losses drove an additional 40 million people into extreme poverty over the past year. As we gather, albeit virtually, for the annual meetings, we must move boldly towards addressing these significant challenges across the continent. The surest path towards stability is one where we abandon half-hearted partnerships, consolidate mutually reinforcing relationships, and develop new approaches that support self-sustaining economic growth and development. The next generation will applaud our efforts. By 2050, the World Economic Forum estimates that a quarter of the population will be in Africa, with 2 out of every 5 children born on our continent. We owe it to them to do whatever it takes to create a new entrepreneurial-led ecosystem that delivers skill-building opportunities and robust economic development. With the right set of targeted investments from the AFDB, countries will accelerate their growth and job creation and lay the foundations for sustainable recovery and economic build-back. The AFDB has a distinctive role that no other bilateral or multilateral development partner can match. As we advance, we must remedy a situation where the World Bank has significantly larger operations in Africa than our own African Development Bank. World Bank's operations approved for Africa in the 2018 fiscal year amounted to some 20 billion United States dollars, compared to some 10 billion United States dollars by the African Development Bank. The historic $115 billion capital injection from AFDB shareholders was timely. However, the bank must target even more capital to meet our aspirations. Creating stability and resilience does not happen overnight, but it will happen gradually as we cultivate our awareness and self-sufficiency. Turning inward is an integral part of this shift. We need to resource the AFDB and position it as the catalyst for our economic advancement. Today, I challenge all of us to leverage our collective knowledge and expertise and mobilize sufficient development and private capital to implement transformative strategies that will deliver a host of projects across the continent, focused across infrastructure, higher education, and agricultural productivity. In this context, it is crucial that we examine all options, including possible issuance of African Development Fund on the international capital market, as the World Bank does for International Development Association. I'm indeed pleased with the bank's efforts in responding to the challenges occasioned by the pandemic. In this regard, and as the AU champion for financial institutions, I would like to reassure the bank of my unwavering support and urge them to continue. 1, working towards a debt action plan. 2, collaborating and partnering with the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund on the Debt Service Suspension Initiative and the G20 Common Framework. 3, exploring options for the strategic use of the special drawing rights to support Africa through the African Development Bank in partnership with African public development banks. 4, working with the International Fund for Agricultural Development and other global institutions to promote the establishment of the Facility for Food Security and Nutrition in Africa, intended to ensure zero hunger in Africa by 2030. And 5, promoting the idea of an African financial stability mechanism that will ensure greater financial market stability for Africa to address exogenous financial shocks, harmonize fiscal regulations, and strengthen homegrown macroeconomic and fiscal policy reforms in addressing long-term liquidity issues and thus sustainability. I encourage the bank to continue to engage with the World Bank Group, the IMF, other development partners, as well as the bank's member countries to realize these lofty aspirations. The bank should also assist in the process of reviewing the AU financial institutions to meet the exigencies of the moment. Let me conclude by recognizing your presence at this high-level gathering as a strong manifestation of our collective resolve and unwavering commitment to ensuring that COVID-19 does not become a hindrance to attaining the Sustainable Development Goals in Africa, as well as the objectives of the African Union Agenda 2063. I have high expectations that the annual meetings will generate solutions that will help Africa shape its post-COVID-19 development agenda and address the myriad of challenges confronting us today. I'm hopeful that these expectations will be met, given the array of expertise and experience marshaled by our esteemed premier financial institution, from the Board of Governors and the high-profile finance and development experts to engage in this discourse on the timely theme of this meeting. Accordingly, I have the privilege to declare these annual meetings duly open. May God bless the African Development Bank, Mother Africa, and us all. I thank you for your attention.
Gentlemen, you will agree with me that that was indeed an inspiring address. With that inspiring address, we have come to the end of the opening ceremony. But before we close, I'd like to inform governors that we will use the next 5 minutes to take official pictures Governors, could you please let your cameras open so that pictures will be taken? And in the course of the annual meetings and the various sessions that are open to the public, pictures will be taken to document the annual meetings. As we finish the photographs, we will be transiting to the high-level knowledge event, from debt resolution to growth, the road ahead for Africa. Can we please start taking the pictures and then transit accordingly? Thank you very much for your attention and for participating in the opening ceremony. Thank you, and welcome to the annual meetings.
The COVID-19 pandemic has increased debt vulnerabilities in Africa, which could jeopardize economic progress in Africa. In 2021, fiscal deficits could double and debt levels rise by an additional 10% of GDP. Large and increasing sovereign debt could lead to disorderly default and lengthy resolutions. How can we remove the debt obstacles and reignite growth amid a post-COVID-19? How can we turn the COVID-19 crisis into an opportunity? Join us in the 2021 High-Level Knowledge Event, From Debt Resolution to Growth, the road ahead for Africa. This is the time to share views, to think boldly, to discuss innovative legal and financial instruments. It is time to reignite growth and keep Africa's debt sustainable to achieve prosperity.